Hello and welcome everybody to the 10th episode of the Pokerfuse podcast. It is March 28th, 2019. Nick, we are officially in double digits. How are you doing this week?
I'm doing very good. Double digits. Feels like a watershed moment. I don't know if I believed deep down we'd get this far 10 weeks in, so...
Yeah, it is quite a milestone, I guess.
Yeah.
For now, anyway.
So how's your week been? I never really asked you.
Yeah, it's my week has been very interesting. Been a lot of attention paid to our upcoming the State of the Online Poker Industry report. So that has occupied a lot of my time this week.
Yeah, so I climbed out of the cave of report writing, I think Monday or Tuesday this week, and then dumped 20,000 words on your desk and asked you to make it shine. So I've had probably a much better week than you have, honestly.
Yeah, it's definitely a departure from my normal duties, but it's something that is a necessary thing to do, and it could be a nice change of pace, though I'm ready to change back.
Yeah. So something that has been frustrating this week is to give people a little bit of a look behind the curtain of how report writing like this works. So last Friday, we kind of put the end of the text. We kind of put a stop on the text and feel like you have to at some point freeze the text, proofread it, and then publish it. And obviously during that time, your report can get outdated. So obviously what we do is we contact all the stakeholders in the industry. We're talking all the operators, journalists, all the regulators around the world, and just say take a week off. Just don't do anything. Just show us a common courtesy here. Don't do anything. Go to the beach, do some internal work retreats, that kind of thing. Just give us a week or two to put it out. So we sent that around last week, and yet again, people went and did stuff. So
yeah, I think they were very dedicated to their jobs and didn't want to take a holiday, is what it seemed like.
Extremely frustrating. So whilst Mike is proofreading it, we're also making text changes. This week, though, for reals, it's going to go in lockdown. So honestly, if you do anything over the next 7 days, it's basically not going to exist because it won't exist in the State of the Online Poker Industry Spring 2019, the industry tome and reference material for the year. So keep that in mind when you're putting together your press release for software updates, or if you want to pass a bill in your state or something like that. It's a dead zone next week.
All right, so we're officially locking it down as of tomorrow, end of business tomorrow.
Yeah. So do you think we should take this opportunity to, sell our report a bit to our listeners, Mike, or should we save that for one more week?
No, let's take that opportunity, because I think there's probably a large portion of people out there that are like, what is this report anyway? Because I don't think we've really described exactly what it is. No,
so it is. This will be our third report, I think, where we basically take a snapshot of everything that's happened in the last 6 months, everything that we think is going to happen in the upcoming 6 months, and give a snapshot of the status of the online poker industry. And every time I start sketching out the skeleton of this report, and I think, it's going to be really hard to find anything to write about, what's really happened in 6 months' time. And then you look back and, oh my word, a hell of a lot has happened. And now it's just a case of trying to manage it. So we cover quite a lot of topics.
And so what kind of things have happened, just for example?
Well, so, that's a good question. So there's been a lot of product development over the last 6 months, and I think one focus of the report very much is the direction the industry is taking in improving their software platforms, in new product innovation, and just kind of next generation software development, kind of pulling online poker kicking and screaming into this new generation of kind of poker software. So that's definitely been a theme.
What other things? So we've seen some developments with regards to rewards. That's been pretty prevalent in the industry.
Yeah, so we've had these things, definitely would have talked about in the report a year ago as well. But that's definitely something that, again, there's been multiple updates in the last 6 months about how operators look at rewards. And then, of course, just beyond these internal industry things, we take a look at the wider scope of online poker. within kind of the larger market developments and regulatory developments. And again, it's been another very busy period for that with the European shared liquidity. So we take a real deep dive there in one feature that we've got into kind of everything that's happened in the last 6 months, where we think it will go in 2019, and the status of where it is today and who the winners and losers are with the market there.
Yeah, so we're also talking about the financial reporting of the companies and their health as a company from those perspectives. As you mentioned, the regulatory markets is also a big part of the report as well. And this report, we actually have some special features which we haven't introduced in previous reports.
Yeah, so we had, and maybe we'll save this for teasing out and later on. But we've got one or two pretty exciting interviews lined up for this. One or two deeper kind of features. Take a look at one or two of the key kind of topics that we see over the last 6 months. So we've interviewed a lot of really interesting stakeholders in the industry giving different perspectives on these matters. It's quite enjoyable for us to do reports like this because it allows us to start planning 1 or 2 months ago, reach out to people and get some really interesting answers and take kind of a bigger picture look at things. So it's really handy for us. I think the end result is very useful for the industry. So yeah, if you are a Poker Industry Pro subscriber already, you will be receiving your copy, much like you would have received our previous copies. Mike, if they are not a subscriber, what should they do?
If they are not, there's a couple things they can do. So first of all, I would suggest go to pokerindustrypro.com and click on the reports section, and there will be a link there where you can get some information on how to either become a subscriber or purchase one-off copies of the report. Another thing you could do is you could look for some promotion of the report on Pokerfuse, and there are links within those articles there that go directly to the buy page where you can get more information, again, on becoming a subscriber or getting the one-off report purchased.
There we go. Awesome. So with all that out of the way, shall we talk about all the things that have happened in the last week that really shouldn't have happened if people had listened to our advice?
Let's do that. Speaking of product development, we saw an announcement this week where Party Poker has released a new game. It is called Short Deck Hold'em. It is very similar to the 6+ Hold'em that we saw PokerStars recently release, and it's probably the hottest game over the past year that has been sweeping both live and online poker rooms, and there seems to be quite a buzz about it. Nick, what can you tell us about Party Poker's version of Short Deck Hold'em? Yeah,
so there's quite a lot of interesting strands here that hopefully we'll touch on in this bit. But Short Deck Hold'em, as the name would probably suggest, and if you'd listened to our previous podcast, I think we were live when PokerStars released their version in January. But obviously the Deuce through fives are stripped from the deck. So, and other than that, it plays much like Texas Hold'em, with the one rule change that flushes beat full houses.
Yes, flushes beat full houses.
I remember when this happened back in January, we had difficulty remembering it, but that's one rule change. Party Poker's rankings are the same. There are slightly different ways that you can deal this game, but they're doing the same with PokerStars. It's also played with an ante. Both Party Poker and PokerStars have done it that way, and it's with a live ante from the dealer, which again both games have gone live with. So. Right. On Party Poker, it's gone live for cash games. We believe that tournaments are going to come very soon.
So what Party did was they modeled their game after the Triton Poker Series. Is that correct?
So that's what the press release said. They said that we are the only site online who have made a short deck game exactly like what you see on the Triton Poker Series, where the Triton Series, they have both high stakes tournaments and cash games televised, and it's very popular there. And our first question was, what does that mean? Because immediately we couldn't exactly tell what made their version different from, say, PokerStars' interpretation, or in fact the sites before them. PokerStars weren't the first people to spread this online. And Mike, would you like to explain the one difference?
So the one difference, as we understand it, is Party Poker is allowing people to take money off the table while playing in this game.
Yeah, so I didn't realise that was a thing that they allow in the Triton series. Obviously, it doesn't make any sense in tournaments. So in their cash games. which is so we had just before we recorded, we were like, why do they have that in this game? I suppose it's like on Triton, so if you're watching it, you can go and play that same game. I'll be honest, I haven't watched any of the televised cash games where they play this, so maybe it's a big deal when people take money off the table. And so my question to you before we record, and I'd love to get your thoughts on it, is why normally in poker can you not do this? Which, as I remember it, when I learned poker 15 years ago, it was called going south, trying to take money off the table, which is a big no-no. It's a big ethical thing that you can't do. So,
right. Always also called rat holing, right?
Yes, yeah, of course, yeah. And in fact, there's lots of things to try and stop people from rat holing, from jumping between tables. So my first question is, why do we have this rule, and why in short deck can we take this rule away?
Yeah, so I mean, that's a pretty big question. My mind immediately went to, well, if you have a minimum buy-in for the table and you're able to take money off the table, if you go below that minimum buy-in, you're effectively short stacking the table. So that could be one reason, but it's probably not what they had in mind.
Yes, and as we understand it, we're not exactly sure how they've configured the tables, but when we asked them, the example that we were given is that a table might be set up where it's got 100 ante buy-in, and then if you take your stack up over 300 antes, you can take money off the table to bring it down to 300. So you're still sitting very deep.
You're still 3x the minimum buy-in?
So yes, see, now I've said it, I'm wondering if it allows you to take it back down to the 100 ante buy-in. I think how it was explained to us was that you could the cap you could bring it down to might be larger than that buy-in, so you're still sitting deep. But like if your stack gets really large, then you can bring it back down. And like when it's described like that, it's like, well, yeah, why don't you have this in all games, right? Like, sure, you don't want people to be able to sit at the minimum, which is 100, and then go down to 50 in short stack. But why not allow people to, okay, if you go over 200, because otherwise, people don't want to play that deep. They're going to leave anyway. They're then going to wait and sit at another table. So why not let people take money off the table? It seems like a no-brainer to allow it under those kinds of terms.
Yeah, that's a good point. So, initially you would think, well, people, and I think you brought this up in our conversation earlier, people want a chance to win their money back. That's just, this approach that people have. But as you say, if I'm really concerned that I'm playing way too deep, I'm going to leave the table. Yeah. So if I don't have the option of taking at least some of that off the table, you're going to lose me as a player altogether. Yeah,
it almost feels like that idea that people, you can't take money off the table because people want to win it back is almost like a throwback to, I don't know, live cash games in smoky backroom type thing, and it's an old vestige of a rule which has brought itself online, and something that maybe and maybe our listeners will both, I think, put our cards on the table and say, like, we're not particularly knowledgeable about high stakes cash games, and maybe there's reasons why this isn't permitted. But to me, it only just seems that, as you say, it's like a fairly old rule that we could probably do away with, again, under the idea of, maybe you have to keep at least 100 big blinds, or maybe 200 big blinds, but if you go well over than that, you can take your money off the table, because again, if the alternative is people just leave anyway, then
right. And there's probably tons of people out there that are listening right now, yelling at their computer or their radio or their phone, saying, "You guys don't get it." Well, you know what? Yeah, we admit we don't get it. So if anyone knows or has any brilliant ideas of why, or any information around just the practice of taking money off the table once it reaches a higher threshold than your buy-in, please get in touch, let us know, tweet at us, send us an email. We're definitely interested in learning more on this topic.
Yeah, definitely send us angry tweets at Pokerfuse. I'm at PokerProJones. Mike, you're at SpookyBugs. So mention all three of us and tell us how uneducated we are. We want to encourage that as much as possible. But the aspect which I'm slightly more educated on, which I find just as interesting, is PokerStars and what they're going to do now. So PokerStars released their game in January, their 6+ Hold'em, and there's been a big question mark over whether this game would only have a limited run or whether it will become a permanent game. We talked about it quite a lot in this podcast over the previous weeks, and I genuinely wonder whether Party Poker releasing their version kind of changes the equation somewhat on PokerStars' end.
Yeah, you would think it would. So just to backtrack a bit, when 6+ was first released by PokerStars. I believe we thought it was going to... well, let me back up even further. Before it was released, we were speculating that this one was so popular of a format that it would be permanent. And then when it was released, there was some mixed signals about whether it was going to be temporary or
so
not,
we definitely got the vibe that like they were putting more into this game launch ahead of time. You know, we were introduced to the game when we were in the Bahamas in January. They had some like live show and tell with Lex where we played it live and we talked about the strategy. And it just felt like this wasn't just, you know, their novelty games that they'd had this year, which might be fun for a few weeks, but it probably doesn't have longevity. This feels like a game which is, you know, it's a game that could absolutely last for a long period of time. So it was released, and we were absolutely talking that was the case. But then they did trickle out some emails to customers saying, "Oh, for a limited time only." And I think some people took that to mean, well, exactly as it says. I think we were still a little bit skeptical. In addition to the fact that they were seeking approval in Italy, and in fact, in the last week went live in Italy, 6+ Hold'em, which is the first time that they have done that. That they've kind of sought approval and launched it in a segregated market, which again shows that they feel this game has more lasting appeal than their other games.
Yeah, and the other interesting thing to note is they have indicated in Italy that they will be rolling this format out in tournament versions.
Yeah, so this game absolutely, of all their novelty games, suits tournaments. I mean, obviously, you know, and it's in the Triton series. It's a lot of fun in tournament forms. There's no reason why you wouldn't have this in tournament games. And from the start, we thought like this absolutely will come in MTTs and why not sit and goes? I mean, it makes absolutely sense. Now in Italy, it's almost like there was some web copy that said it was coming out in tournaments. This wasn't an official release, so this was us kind of spying maybe some evidence that this was going to happen rather than PokerStars saying absolutely it will. But I would be shocked if going into, you know, this spring period with Scoop and whatnot that we don't see tournaments, maybe not in the Scoop schedule, although that hasn't actually been released yet, so that's possible, but around that time that we don't see this spread in tournament format. So the other interesting aspect here is that maybe they had planned to make it a limited time and then bring it back by popular demand. I think PokerStars really want to do this. McDonald's only has what do they only sell for a limited
time?
McRib.
Yeah. The McRib. So yeah, what they do is they create this artificial scarcity by having a product available only for a limited amount of time that creates a demand so that they can bring it back. But now, as you point out, with more of their competitors offering the game, that could undercut that artificial scarcity, if you want to call it that, that's created by having a limited run.
Yeah, and there's no doubt that the Party Poker have launched this for the long haul. I mean, the press release they sent out said that it was launching in cash games heads up, 6 max, 8 max, and full ring, which is absolutely ridiculous. And it hasn't been the case right now. It's just at 6 max, which makes a lot more sense. So I assume that was. I mean, you would never have 6 and 8 and 9. That's crazy, and no one does heads up anymore. So I'm not quite sure what that was all about. But this is definitely a big launch for them. They're looking for this to be a permanent game, in my opinion. There's no question about it. In the lobby of the software, this is a new tab in the software. It's got a blind lobby, so you just kind of click, I want this buy and I want to play this number of tables, and it launches, which is a very PokerStars thing. The PokerStars have done this a lot with their novelty games. So this is absolutely a big launch for Party Poker, and it's coming in tournaments. That's been confirmed. So yeah, this isn't going anywhere from Party's perspective.
Yeah, and I think that this game is only going to grow in popularity. The more people that get to play it, the more popular it's going to become, because it is such a fun game and addresses a lot of the things that make poker, or can make poker, boring for some people, like folding a lot of hands. This makes it statistically correct to play a lot more hands, and therefore it's more of an action game. People are always more involved. I think this is a pretty big deal. Yeah.
So there we go. So Party Poker's short deck. It is live in the .com market. It's live in the UK. It's not yet live on some of their other smaller regulated rooms. We checked in Sweden, the Czech Republic. Not sure about Denmark, but it's not live there yet. But presumably it will roll out there in the near future. So yeah, short deck, hold them on PokerStars and Party Poker now. Be sure to check that out. Drum roll, it is the segment where we talk about US regulation. And Mike, again, in the last 24 hours, a thing happened that you're going to educate us all on.
Yes, that is online gambling, and online poker specifically is now legal in the great state of West Virginia.
Yeah, so we have been following this the last few weeks. So this was expected to happen. Is that correct?
Yeah. Yes. So it, I believe back on March 9th, had passed all of the hurdles that it needed to and was only awaiting the signature of the governor to make it law. I was checking the West Virginia legislative website on multiple times a day to see if it had been progressing. I don't see a lot of media coverage coming from that part of the world for me, so that was my best conduit to what was going on. And it is listed today as being enacted into law. I believe that it was left to lapse. The governor did not actually sign it, but there is a condition in the law in West Virginia that if it is passed by both the House and the Senate and the governor elects not to sign it or veto it, that it will automatically become law. And it lists today's date as the date that happened.
Okay, so being this has just happened, we haven't covered it on any of our sites yet. I can understand, Mike, if you can't field all of my questions here, but I'm going to fire a few at you and we'll see how you fare. Sound good? So, online poker and online casino, not sports betting?
I believe sports betting is already legal in West Virginia.
Okay.
I know that I've seen quite a few newsletters come through with Chris Grove's name on it. I know he's been following very closely the sports betting situation in that state, and there was an incident with two of the operators taking down their online sports betting activities because of some contract dispute. I'd have to do a little bit more research to find out exactly what happened there, or people can go to onlinepokerreport.com, which is, I think Chris is still the editor-in-chief over there. I'm not entirely sure.
Yeah, and then from the sports side, legalsportsreport.com as well is an excellent resource there. So, okay, so it's casino and poker. It's added on to an existing sports betting legislation, we think.
Correct.
And again, population of West Virginia is...
Ooh, good question. I'm going to guess completely on this, and I know I've probably written on this topic in the past, but I'm going to say 5 million-ish?
5 million. So small.
All right. I'm going to look it up while we're talking. But
okay. So I remember from a previous podcast that I think we said that it was like double the size of Nevada? No.
Okay, so...
yeah?
Well, Nevada is... Wow, now you really got me. So I could start from the bottom. Delaware is 1 million. I think Nevada's 3 million, and New Jersey is 9 million, and Pennsylvania is like 13, 14 million.
Okay. Well, what we know is that it's small. So we don't expect, this to be a huge... so I'm there before you. Where are we? It's ranked 38th with a population of 1.8 million.
Ooh, I was way off. 1.8 million. Yeah, so that's tiny.
Yeah, so less than the size of Nevada. So so this is not going to be a game changer, but it's always nice to have another state, a fifth state. So 5 out of 50 now, 10% of your states have regulated online poker. So next question, what do you see as the next steps then?
Well, what we're going to see is regulations developed by, I would assume, the regulator there, and then licenses issued, and that whole process before we see the first virtual poker hand dealt in West Virginia. My best guess would it's possible that we might see it right before the end of the year, but it's most likely going to last into 2020 before we actually see it go live. Yeah,
so when we think Pennsylvania passed their law, how long ago? It was over a year ago, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was over a year ago. Now, New Jersey did act quicker. The other thing is, without the Wire Act being settled law, it seems very unlikely that operators are going to be eager to get into West Virginia. You're looking at half the size of Nevada. Nevada's got the one operator, and though they don't reveal their revenue statistics anymore until they're at least at 3 operators, it's hard to tell for sure. But without the World Series of Poker for 6 to 8 weeks over the summer, I would say that even one room would struggle in Nevada. So now you cut that population in half, and I'm not sure there's going to be anybody beating down the doors to launch an operation in West Virginia if they cannot combine those player pools with other states.
Yeah, I mean, when we look at Nevada, as we say, it's a larger population. It's the World Series of Poker. It's a gambling mecca. For
tourist destination. Right?
Yeah, for both internal and international tourists, and that just about has one online poker room, and that's because it shares liquidity with Delaware and New Jersey. Now, probably if it was still segregated, it probably would still tick along as an online poker room. It would be very small. So I think it's probably fair to say that if the Wire Act interpretation stands as it is, that there will be 0 online poker rooms in West Virginia.
Yeah, so there may be a company or two that may want to launch just to gain control of that market in the hopes that in the future they'll be able to combine player pools. But I don't think anyone's going to be in a rush.
Yeah. Well, okay, so with all that in mind, it's still, positive progress. And again, we're still hoping to have some kind of clarity on the Wire Act in the coming months. Last week, we talked about a new UFC-themed game would come to PokerStars, a new spin and go game that came to PokerStars. And we had a really good idea, not to pat ourselves on the back, but a really good idea, I think, of how this game could be played, Mike.
Yeah. So because the octagon is, what did we call it? The pitch.
The pitch,
the favorite pitch of the UFC. We thought it was only natural that some factor of 8 would be a good number for the number of players to play at a table for a spin and go. We looked at 4 as being really cool and a bit of a change of pace for spin and go players on PokerStars, and that would fit in nicely with the UFC theme. But things that we've seen this week seem to indicate that is not going to be the case.
Yeah, so we thought 4-handed would be really fun. We also thought maybe there would be a knockout bounty component, again, fitting in with the theme, and also something that's been done before. So rather than repeat everything, definitely go and listen to last week's podcast if you didn't hear that. But so it was this week's, the Stars Group held their first ever Investors Day, which was an absolutely nail-biting 5-hour... webcast that one could watch, or you could go there live. It was in.
Was it really 5 hours long?
It was, yeah.
Oh no! Yeah. Are you serious?
4 hours 40 minutes, I think.
Wow.
Yeah,
okay.
And so they meet with investors and answer their questions and discuss. I hear that they had PokerStars VR there for the investors and analysts to play in between sessions. Hopefully they had less technical problems than we had when we tried it out in the Caribbean, but. But in that, there was one slide. It was like slide 63 of 140 or something like that. They talked about the UFC quite a lot, and I actually haven't gone back and listened to it to that section yet. But they talked about the UFC a lot in this partnership with PokerStars, and they had a little picture of what we had exclusively revealed last week about this new UFC game, and in that picture it was just a 3-handed normal sit and go. Everything that we said it wouldn't be, because they'd be insane to have 3-handed and it should be knockout. It's just going to be, it looks like it's just going to be, I mean, maybe the mock-up was just done really quickly, and in fact it is going to be what we say. If it's not, PokerStars, you've still got time to change it. We will be sending you the bill for that idea. I mean, really, it was Party Poker's idea, so we can't take full claim to it. But absolutely, you need some kind of bounty component in there. So, circle back with us, guys, and we'll help you out with that.
Beyond the UFC-themed spin and goes, PokerStars also rolled out changes to their Stars reward systems globally this week.
Yeah, so I think it was last week we talked about this happening, and it did happen. So that's just amazing predictions from us. Why you should be listening to the podcast every week. So it came out in Italy. The Stars Rewards 2.0, we think it's their 2.0. They're not calling it that, but it's something they referenced a while back. It's a really big change to how the rewards program works. Chests are much more valuable, at least 3 times more valuable. They've also made it a lot less top heavy. So before you had a 1,000 chance of opening a chest with thousands of dollars in or something like that. Now it's much more reduced. So I think the most valuable chest is 1 in 100. So you've got a shot at getting it. They're overall much more valuable. They also are much harder to earn. So they take at least 3 times as long to earn, we believe. Obviously this changes per player, and you earn them you move up and down tiers over a month-long basis. So all these changes rolled out initially, and now they've gone live in the .com market.
Right, so they haven't said that they've actually increased or decreased the overall value of the program, and as you pointed out, the ability to earn one of these chests is individualized. So from a small sample size of what we've seen, it seems like the value of these chests has gone up by a factor of 3, but that the requirements is a little bit lower. So a couple that I've seen have not been 3x the requirements that they were previously, which could mean that they've added a little bit of value to the program, or it could mean that it's just been massaged in other areas to try and compensate or accommodate the difference in the requirements.
Yeah, so we've seen that kind of the base, I think the minimum requirements for earning the base chest, I think it's the blue, is only like 2.5 or 2.7 times as difficult to earn or something like that. But of course, again, that's just one number, and as you rightly say, other numbers could have been tweaked. Again, I still stick with the fact that I doubt that it's in aggregate more valuable, because they would be talking that up. If anything, it's more likely the other way, or it's just equal. I mean, I do think that their main motivation here is to make opening chests more of an interesting, engaging experience, which I think is a very, very good idea. It benefits everybody. It's absolutely the smart way to go. I think going back to a month-long cycle is also much smarter. Before, it was you had to earn 4 chests in a day, which is, again, the chests were very quick to earn, but it doesn't make it particularly meaningful if it's like every day it's a grind if you want to hit something. So 30 days makes sense. More interesting to open it up, that you know, each one you might get a few dollars here or there. So that would make sense. That's all gone live across all the markets.
Yeah, I'll be interested to see how they continue to iterate on this program. So has it been 2 years since they introduced it initially?
Yeah, it was it was the summer of 2017, I think. So coming up
just
2 years.
About 2 years, right. And this is really their first major change. I'm curious to see if they are going to be implementing smaller iterative changes, or if we will only see these, big major shifts every long period of time. Yeah,
I mean, it's funny because obviously they could be making small iterative changes all the time. You wouldn't know because the system's opaque, so they can be tweaking the numbers all they like. They made the change to the MTT earn rate reductions, and now and then they run special promotions. They put spin and go tickets in there and that kind of thing. But this is definitely a pretty integral change. They removed the boost feature. They added in like a cash in feature to cash in
that exchange
partial
feature,
exchange partial chests. So it was a pretty big software update. In fact, just to correct something I said before, I said it's gone live in all markets. It actually hasn't gone live in New Jersey. Is that correct?
Right. So New Jersey actually just got Stars rewards recently. I think toward the end of last year. They, prior to that, they were still on the old VIP system. So it could be regulatory red tape that has caused them not to move as quickly in that market, or it could be other factors as well. We're not sure, but yeah, it is not live in New Jersey as far as I know.
Yeah, I think in my opinion, the reason why New Jersey stayed on the old system is because I think the market was in that point that they wanted to spend that amount of money to encourage high volume play, because the liquidity is a lot smaller. And it's maybe they got to the confidence that they could maintain liquidity with a much reduced rewards program, or encouraging a very different play style. But I think it's probably more they wanted the benefits of what a high value, high volume rewards program gives in the New Jersey market, whilst it was trying to stay competitive.
Right, but then why not change to the 2.0 version, I guess. Why not make that change now after you've already implemented Stars Reward to begin with?
Yeah, I see. I mean, maybe it's just a case of the customers are still adjusting to the new system, so you don't want to go back to back, a few months later, completely change it again, because, maybe users are get used to the boost feature or that kind of thing. So maybe it's a marketing message. I'd be surprised if by the end of the year this isn't across New Jersey as well.
Another thing that relates back to Spin and Goes would be the launch of Spin and Goes on Zynga Poker.
Yeah, so just wrote about that today. The embargo was lifted today, that they have launched Spin and Win.
Spin and Win.
Obviously, right. Zynga being the world's largest kind of free play, air quotes, social online poker. And these are WPT themed Spin and Win tournaments.
How do they play? So we've seen the lottery style Spin and Goes take different formats across different operators. Are they the standard 3-player that we see throughout the industry?
So it mostly fits the same format that we saw when Winamax launched it. 6 years ago, Winamax launched Espresso. That's how long this game has been around. And
wow.
It's now everywhere, this tournament format. Obviously, PokerStars, Spin and Go. We've got, I won't enumerate them all. We talked about Unibet's Hexapro, which was a fairly recent launch on this podcast a few weeks ago. So Zynga's version, kind of shocking, really, that they haven't released this before, because I think it's perfect for kind of free play games. Their format is very similar in that it's 3-handed, they're fast, the games last 5 to 8 minutes, the prize pool is random, it is winner takes all. The big difference that they've got is that the top prize that you can get, some sites, I think when they first came out, like the top prize was like 100 or maybe a few hundred times the buy-in. Very quickly then operators had 1,000 times the buy-in, and now today, like, PokerStars has got a $40 buy-in Spin and Go with a top prize of $3 million, which that prize triggers one time in 20 million, I believe. I'm going off memory from what I wrote today. So obviously it hasn't triggered yet and may never trigger 1 in 20 million. But that's a 75,000 times buy-in multiplier. With Zynga's Spin and Win, the maximum is an 8 times multiplier, which we've never seen something so low. And I think that's fascinating. Right. Probably speaks to kind of the economies of free play sites more than anything.
So my mind was off on a tangent while you were talking. And you had mentioned 1 in 20 million times for that top $3 million prize on PokerStars. I don't know if you've seen, Game Intel tweeted something this week about the number of spins that PokerStars runs. I want to say it was like 300 million, but I'm just kind of guessing. I was wondering, do you remember?
Wow. Was it 3? I remember the tweet. I retweeted it. I didn't see... I looked at the trend. I can't remember what the absolute figures were of the bar graphs.
Okay.
Is that 300 million lifetime, they estimate? Or
I don't know. We should probably pull that up while we're talking, just so we don't leave people hanging out there.
Yeah.
Because that's there's a pretty big range of things that it could be that was the information that was in that tweet.
Yeah.
But I think it's interesting to compare that to the number of the $3 million prize hitting once every 20 million spins.
Yeah. And so, I think the reason why, or my guess of why Zynga have gone much lower is that, so they're already high stakes games as well in the worlds of stupidly inflated economies of free play sites. I think their cheapest sit and go is like a 200,000 chip buy-in, and it goes up to if anything, it teaches you like high number maths, because I'm going like 100 billion versus like, I don't know, just you're dealing with like 10 zeros on the ends of numbers. Anyway, the Spin and Win are their high stakes games, because I think the biggest buy-in is 10 billion. So their biggest prize is 80 billion. And I think the thing is there, if you go and have like 100x or 1000x prize, someone's won like 10 trillion chips, which maybe their system can't show that many zeros, and B, like they would have nothing to spend their money on. Obviously you can't cash it out. You've got to, you've already just won their highest stakes game. You've got all this money. There's only so many, pictures of sunglasses and popcorn to put
Buy
on
a
the
drink for your friend.
Yeah, exactly. And I think they already have this big issue with like inflation, and just that obviously every day I think you get 60,000 new chips. New accounts get 1 million chips to start. Why they started such ridiculous numbers, I don't know. But
they do rake though, right?
Yeah,
because that's the only way you could really keep the economy from just inflating to numbers beyond your control.
So I think they rake. I know PokerStars did, because I know when PokerStars added rake many years ago to their free play sites, there was a big hoo-ha about it. So I'd be surprised if they didn't. But even so, like, and you have to rake so aggressively to offset.
Maybe that's what Daniel Negreanu was talking about. More rake is better in play chip games. Okay, I'm not sure.
And it very much is. I mean, imagine like every new account gets 1 million new chips. How much rake you need to be raking daily to offset that inflation? And so, you go to the store and you probably can buy, a diamond for 10 billion or that kind of thing. But if they go and add these huge trillion top prizes, now you just have to go to the store and add in a something ridiculous. Anyway, I pulled up that tweet. So according to PokerStars, these are estimates. 300,000 run a day.
According to Game Intel. So it was 300,000 a day.
Sorry,
So extrapolate that out over 300 days, and we're looking at what?
See, it's big numbers. Big numbers are difficult.
900
something.
90 million?
Hang on.
900 million?
100 and... What, is that 1 billion? 100 and... Oh, I see. Yeah, big numbers.
Big numbers. So how many $3 million spins would hit over the... Well, that's assuming that all those would be playing at the 40.
Well,
level,
and this is the thing. It's going to be a very... so the most popular is obviously the 25 cent... Gets just reading off the graph 100,000 a day. So 100,000 a day. We're talking 3 million a month at that buy-in level. So 30 million. We're obviously in the peak time in the season, so this might not be for the annual, but let's say 30 million of that buy-in a day, and that's by far the most popular a year, and that's by far the most popular. So if on that one they had a top prize, it might occur once every year or once every 18 months, something like that. So at this $40, it may never occur. Anyway, we're going way off tangent here. That is Zynga Poker's Spin and Win, which is live now on the Facebook, on your mobile app, if you want to give it a go.
Looking ahead to next week, there's this is one of my favorite times of the poker media calendar. Can you guess why, Nick?
Is it because we're going to publish our report?
No. Well, that too, but no. Around this time every year, we get to see some potential spoof articles coming out for April Fool's Day.
Oh, of course, yeah, absolutely.
So trying to determine what news is real and what news isn't is kind of an interesting time for me.
Oh, that's actually very funny, because this Sunday, the day before April Fool's Day, PokerStars, their Sunday Million is going to be in knockout format. We didn't talk about that. I'm sure we should have done
a
segment on that. We've written a news article about that, haven't we?
I'm not sure.
Wow,
sometimes you just get so much information and you're not sure what actually makes it into an article.
Well, now we're doing an outro, and we just mentioned it on news. This Sunday, PokerStars is having a knockout Sunday Million, which is we don't have time to talk about whatsoever. So we'll just next week we'll just have to do a post-mortem. But I tweeted that, and somebody replied and said, surely that should be held one day later. So.
Yeah, so we will see some interesting news, hopefully, or fake news, hopefully, next week. That will be something that I'll be looking forward to. And if there's anything that's particularly funny, please do let us know. And who knows, maybe we'll touch on it in our next episode. All right, it feels like it's time to say goodbye.
Yeah, I never do the goodbye bits.
Oh, right, that's me. All right. Well, that's it for us this week. Everyone, thanks for tuning in, and we will see you next week.